Hello and welcome to your introductory lesson on graphing of the sine and the cosine functions by hand. Here we're going to graph y is equal to the sine of x. X obviously is a value on our x-axis and we'll have to evaluate it out here. When we set up our graph, we know that the sine, when we work it out, has the largest value of +1 and a smallest value of -1. We also know that the sine has a period of 2 pi, and we're going to graph this over 2 full periods. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to a +2 pi, and we're going to go down to a -2 pi. Alright, to graph these, we need to plot our critical values. Our critical values are points where the graph has a maximum point, a minimum point, or a point of inflection, where it changes from curvy up to curvy under. Alright, so what it does is we need to break our graph into 4 equal parts. Okay, that's pretty easy. That's between 0 and 2 pi. That's 4 equal parts. Now, let's think about where each of these are. Halfway between 0 and 2 pi. Let me actually move that over just a smidge there. So it does look like it's exactly halfway between 0 and 2 pi. Right there is pi. Halfway between those 2 points is pi over 2. And let me fix that point as well. I am going to hold you guys accountable to keeping these as even as possible. And then this point right here will be 3 pi over 2. For right now, you can just go ahead and memorize those points. Pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. Those will be the critical values for your base or your parent function of the sine of x and the cosine of x. From there, we just need to put on over 2 periods, so we'll break from 0 to -2 pi up into 4 equal pieces. And we're just going to take these and we're going to flex them right over the y-axis, so it'll be -pi over 2, -pi, -3 pi over 2. Great. Okay, now we're going to use a table of values. On the top of our table of values, we're going to put our x value. And on the bottom, we're going to do our sine of x. Now, sine of x is just taking place of y. On the table of values, we need to put each of these critical points. -2 pi, -3 pi over 2, -pi, -pi over 2. Don't forget 0. A lot of people forget 0 and it messes up your graph. Pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, 2 pi. Alright, from here we need to work out these values. I like to do the positives first and then go ahead and back and fill in the negatives with a pattern. All you're going to do is for each of these values in the x, we're going to evaluate the sine of x. So for 0 here, for instance, we would take and figure out the sine of 0, which hopefully by now we all know is 0. So you can get that value in a variety of ways. You can look it up on the unit circle, you can look it up in your table of values, or heck, you could get a calculator, plug sine of 0 in, and it should give you 0. Just make sure it is in radian modes before you do these. Now we're going to work all these out. So, the sine of pi over 2 is 1. The sine of pi is 0. Sine of 3 pi over 2 is -1. I think you guys are starting to get the point of what we're doing down here. And the sine of 2 pi is 0. When we come backward, sine of -pi over 2 is -1. -pi is 0. -3 pi over 2 is 1. And -2 pi is 0. From here, we're just going to plot the points. 0, 0, pi over 2, 1, that was from right there. Pi is 0, 3 pi over 2 is -1, and 2 pi is 0. These are coordinate points. Okay, and then from here, -pi over 2 is -1, -pi is 0, -3 pi over 2 is a +1, and -2 pi is 0 again. From here, as we saw in our calculator activity, we know these are nice, smooth, curvy lines. So we're going to make a nice curve up, and then back down, and then here we're going to curve under. Okay? Curve under to the down points, just like you're making a nice rounded valley and a nice curvy mountaintop. Think Appalachian Mountains, not Rocky Mountains. And curve up here and back. There you have it. That is the graph of y equals to the sine of x. We would do y equals the cosine of x the same way, except right here would put the cosine of x, and all of these values would be slightly different.